Hey everyone, Brian from All Day Ruckoff here, and today we've got an interview with Garret, aka Cadre Machine from GORUCK. We're going to be talking about the 2020 Constellation events, everything that he's changed up. It sounds like they're going to be completely different, just entirely different from previous years. So I'm really excited to see what he's got in store. But we're going to dive into all of that, how it's changing, why it's changing, and what he hopes to turn this event into. This has been a really big week for GORUCK. Not only have they had a couple major announcemements, but they've also been releasing the 2020 schedule. So I'm just really thankful, Garret, if you're listening to this, that you're able to take the time to talk with me, because I know everyone down there is really busy. Thank you so much for downloading this, and you're listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 113. Thank you so much again for downloading this. Thank you for the support. Truly appreciate it. I mentioned at the beginning that a lot of things have happened this week in GORUCK. There's a big sale going on. There's a number of large announcements. All of it's available on the All Day Ruckoff website, alldayruckoff.com, or you can poke around GORUCK's website looking for all the announcements there as well. I'd recommend hitting up All Day Ruckoff because it's nice and concise. Jason's post is, although very well written, it's over 9,000 words. Took me about 45 minutes to get through. And I think the post that I wrote on it takes roughly 5 minutes to read through. So if you don't have 45 minutes to read his, you can spend 5 minutes and read the one that I threw together. Again, thank you so much for the support. And here is the interview with Garret. Today I'm talking with Garret from GORUCK. You might know him as Cadre Machine, Cadre Garret. Thank you so much for being on the call with me today. I'm really excited. We're going to talk about GORUCK Constellation 2020 and everything that's changing, that's new. A lot of good stuff coming this way that I've kind of heard a little bit about, but I can't wait to talk to you. Garret, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Sitting at my desk right now, and let me tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the 2020 schedule in the GORUCK website, and I'm publishing and assigning locations to events. And I don't know if you can hear in the background, my dog is attacking this device I made that's connected to bungee cords that gives him resistance to wear him out, and he fights with it all day. He loves it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like he's having a good time.
Yeah, he loves this thing. He's killing it.
So GORUCK Constellation, I mean, it's been around for, 3 years now?
The first event was January 2017. So, 3 years.
Perfect. And 2020, I guess end of 2019 is you're going to be kind of running some of the beta events, but 2020 is going to be a brand new set of Constellation events. What made you get involved with GORUCK Constellation?
I was part of the team for Trek years ago, and when Trek went away, I then, along with Troy Willett, who I'm sure you know the name, him and I worked the majority of the Jedburgh events together, and Jedburgh, evolved over time. And I did we only ran, I want to say 4 a year. And I did about maybe 6 a year. Either way, I did about 10 of those together with Troy. And then after he left the company, the last 3 remaining that were on the books, I did myself together with Jeff Reeves. But a lot of what was great about Trek and what was great about Jedburgh, what people really liked, GORUCK wanted to put something that had a lot of those elements in it. A gentleman's course, an educational course, something, relevant. And so they put together the Constellation program. I was not part of that initially in any way. I was very focused on the firearms program at the time, which, as you know, has had incredible growth. And as Constellation went on, a determination was made at some point the model that the firearms program is using seems like a model that can be scaled and duplicated for other event series. And what's the model that I'm talking about? The model is having set, repeatable, known locations and having a set group of cadre that can deliver a curriculum consistently to a standard every single time. So we're going to take that model and try to apply that to Constellation, and that's when I got involved.
That is exciting to hear. And I've done a number of firearms events with GORUCK, and I mean, what you described, I completely agree with. And so I think by bringing that model over to Constellation, that will be pretty cool because, I've done Constellation events in Seattle, and then a month and a half, 2 months later, someone will do a Constellation event somewhere else, and it will be, nearly a completely different experience. So
Exactly.
it should be, cool to see how all this comes together. When did you get involved in GORUCK Constellation?
This was in the end of 2018. Wow, I can't believe it's been that long already. Time flies, but it really does. At some point at the end of 2018, there was some internal discussions about revamping the program. There was some displeasure with the curriculum as it stood, and in order to upgrade it, in order to bring it to a world-class level, there was some talks about, what can we do to revamp it? What can we do to update it? And to make a very long, drawn-out story short, in some point in late 2018, I was tasked with rewriting the curriculum from scratch.
So that's what you've been doing in regards to Constellation for the past, what would it be now, 9 months?
Well, I completed the curriculum probably a couple months ago, but we had no way of implementing it because the constellations that were already on the books had people signed up, had cadre assigned, had locations picked out, and they were already committed to the packing list. They were committed to the logistics. So there was no way to implement it. So what I had to do is work backwards and find events that were on the schedule, that were going to happen, that also coincided with the locations that we wanted to use, that were unassigned and had relatively low numbers. So we found 4 of them.
That makes a lot of sense because, I mean, you've got Constellation coming up in, let's say, 2 weeks. You don't really want the entire packing list to change on you. There's a bit of gear that comes along with these events that you don't find at the typical light, tough, or heavy.
Exactly. And the location is what's the most critical thing.
So I would love to talk about that, to unpack the location and kind of how that plays into this whole thing. But before we get there, you mentioned that there's 4 events that you found where you could kind of apply the new model to. Are those kind of going to be beta events, or what's the deal with those?
Yeah. So GORUCK likes to use the word beta. Basically, that just means, I guess that's a new technology term, but basically that is a test bed. That's a way to kind of smooth things out and see what works, what doesn't work, what we need to change. And the 4 in particular, the first one is going to be in Oklahoma. That's this month. Then in September, sure enough, we're going to have one in Ohio, and that one's already sold out. And then after that, the following month, we're going to have one in South Florida, in Miami. And then the last one is going to be in Waco, Texas. Now, Texas has pretty high numbers. It's going to be sold out, I think. We're capping these at 50. Ohio's already oversold. Oklahoma, I want to say, has about 30 people, so that has plenty of spots left. And Miami, I think, is about the same. And each of these locations will have 3 cadre assigned as well.
Will you be one of the cadres showing up for those 4 events?
Yeah, I'm going to go to those 4 events plus 2 others, which it could be it's whoever's going to be doing it the next year, really.
Got it. So you mentioned events selling out. That's not something that we hear about typically with a GORUCK because the standard play, I guess, is sell more events or more event registrations, and if you sell more, then more cadre come. And so you can find, GORUCK Tough events with 100 people for a cadre. I think my first constellation was maybe 120 people and a bunch of cadre. Are all of the upcoming future GORUCK Constellation events that are going to be following this new standard that you've created, are they going to be capped at 50 people?
Yes. So that's a very good point that you brought up. There, in my opinion, there is no way to maintain the level of quality and consistency and delivery when you have an event for 30 people versus an event for 100 people. I don't care how many cadre you have, it doesn't make a difference, because there's issues with the location, there's issues with student to instructor ratio. People get lost in the mix. They lose attention. Not everybody gets to do everything. And in the end, if I'm going to put my name on it, and if it's going to be a Garret curriculum that's going to be, executed, and if GORUCK's going to put their name on it, then we're not doing anything half-ass here just to say that we did it. We're doing it to the highest level. And what I mean by that is, whether it's our firearms events or whether it's these constellation events, we want things that are compared to the best in the world, not compared to some other rinky-dink thing that can be found down the road. So these will be capped at 50 people. It doesn't matter if 70 people want to come. We're capping it at 50 because we want consistent manpower, student to instructor ratio. We need to make sure everybody goes through all the evolutions. We're going to be using sign-off cards and check sheets that you have to complete certain tasks to get your patch. And we're only going to run about 10 or so of these a year, by the way.
That's exciting. So hard cap on 50. So if the event shows up and you want to do it, then sign up right away. Only 10 a year. I want to say that's definitely less than 2 years ago. I can't remember how many events came out in 2019, how many constellation events, but it feels like 10 a year is less. Would that be correct?
I can tell you that, well, the thing is, this year in 2019, they still had this whole Constellation 6 thing.
Yes.
Right? So that's going away. There's no Constellation 6. It's 12 to 15 hours. It's however long it takes to get through the curriculum. And it's not done overnight anymore. It's from 8 a.m. until at least 8 p.m. There's no nighttime stuff. So to answer your question, in 2019, there were 15 Constellation 12s and 15 Constellation 6s. So if you want to count those as separate things, then you could say there were 30 of them this year.
So lower event numbers, but it's going to be a more consolidated curriculum. It's going to be more similar from city to city based on the new curriculum. And then it's also happening during the day, which
exactly.
I think that makes a lot of sense for the constellation events. I guess I'm not entirely sure what the new curriculum entails, but I do know that the previous ones were a lot of learning. And I know I consumed a lot of coffee over the night because, PT will keep you awake, but it can be tough in a warm gym, staying together.
You're absolutely right. And there's not going to be any PT at all. There's no PT element. There's not really a rucking element. Everything is going to be learn, do, learn, do, learn, do. A classroom practical application followed immediately afterwards. The reason we're using the daytime format is for multiple reasons, which I'll touch on. Number one, getting permitting and permission to do all the stuff we want to do is a lot easier during the daytime, during normal business hours, than it is through the middle of the night where you have to really explain yourself. This is number one. Number two, it follows people's normal circadian rhythm. So it's easier for them to be attentive and be in tune with class, and it keeps them more involved. The other thing is, as a company, we can maximize our time on target over a weekend. So my plan is that on a Friday night, you do a self-responder course. You do that self-responder course of 2 hours, you're getting your Stop the Bleed certification and your Advanced Bleeding Control certification. You're getting 2 certifications from 2 different certifying bodies on a Friday night. Then push into Saturday, 8 a.m., you're doing Constellation. Then push into Sunday at the exact same location, we're doing a force-on-force class. So we're maximizing our time on target for those 10 convenings throughout the year.
I like that. And it sounds like none of those events will go over the night, so you get your full night's sleep, you show up well rested, ready to go every single day.
Exactly correct.
So you mentioned location. That's one of the big things for the new event. What kind of locations are you looking for to run the Constellation events at?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm happy you asked it because I know you have a lot of listeners, and this is a good way for me to get this out because I've been sourcing from the community leads rather than cold calling. So for every single Constellation event in 2020 and the 4 betas in 2019, we are using municipal fire department training towers. So if somebody has a lead to one of those, I'll be happy to speak to a point of contact, to a decision maker about setting us up there. But in all the major cities, we have hooked up with a fire tower. We, have memorandums of understanding with them, and we will be conducting the events there.
That's interesting. That's not a location that I was initially thinking. So
What were you thinking?
I was thinking more classroom style rooms, but I guess a fire station would probably have everything you need for that.
The whole point of Constellation is to prepare you for a worst case scenario. And what are firefighters for? They're for the worst case scenario. So it makes sense that their training site would be the perfect training ground for what we're doing. And it's also something I've been accustomed to using with the U.S. Coast Guard because we use fire training grounds also for our training.
So you've got experience with them, and then based on that, you know that this is going to be a good fit. So that's cool.
Oh, yeah. I'm a certified firefighter in the state of Florida. A lot of experience with them.
A lot of experience with them. So if someone's listening and they might know someone who's a firefighter, send you an email with contact information with someone who's a decision maker over there so you can get in contact.
Yep. Email me or they can email GORUCK, info@goruck.com. It gets to me.
Perfect.
It gets to me no matter what.
So we've got 10 locations a year for 2020. We've got kind of a full weekend of events, Friday night, all day Saturday, Sunday as well. It's pretty exciting how all of this is coming together. How are you feeling about all of it?
I'm very excited about it. I'm a little nervous or apprehensive because I want these first 4 to go off, really well. And as you could imagine, we're going to make changes. After these first 4, we're going to learn, hey, we don't have enough time to even do this. We have to cut it out. Or, hey, we need to buy this piece of equipment. Or wouldn't it be great if we could add this? Or we might not have that. So there will be changes. Now, what I can tell you is for the benefit of the customer, right now in 2019, the price of Constellation is less than $200. And I can assure you that come 2020, when those events are launched, the price will go up.
Good to know. So the people who are signed up for the current 2019 events, and it sounds like the ones coming up are going to be beta events for this new Constellation series. They're kind of getting it at a reduced rate. And then come 2020, it's going to be full price.
Correct. That's exactly right.
So in previous years, I've done the last, 3 years worth of Constellation events. There's been a lot of exploring the city, going out, finding stuff, coming back. Is that going to carry over to the 2020 events, or will the 2020 events be more on site, working in the firefighter tower and working around that area?
You'll mostly be working exclusively inside the compounds of the firefighter training grounds. You're not really going to do any quote unquote exploring of the city at all. It's not like a scavenger hunt. You're not going out to find stuff and bring it back. You're not doing any dumpster diving. You're not making tasers out of cigarette lighters. You're not doing anything like that. What we're going to be doing there is we're going to be doing things like, I'll give you an example. You're inside of an apartment building. The apartment building catches fire. You need to get out. But problem is that a fire is preventing you from exiting, and the only way out is off the balcony and down. What do you do? How do you get down? That's something that we're going to learn. Another example is I want to be able to do surveillance and gather information on a person or a location. And I want to be able to do this so that way I can in turn learn counter surveillance so that someone can't do surveillance on me in case my home or place of business, and I can be a hard target. So we're going to learn how to do that. And we're going to have a practical application where they get to do that. We're going to learn how to defeat restraints where, okay, in the past, there used to be the construction of a gas mask. And the way that that was tested is the cadre would chase you around the city and spray you with pepper spray, right? Well, now we're going to be doing some CS gas training. And the way that we're going to do that, that's different than the way that it's been done in the past, is we're going to use actual police riot gas. And so if you're in a scenario where there's civil unrest and you need to cross a space, okay, even if you're abroad, and there's riot police shooting tear gas, we're going to have a gas mask. We're going to make one that's going to withstand the tear gas, and you're going to get a chance to actually test that.
Wow. So that's
confined space.
A bit more than a pepper can spray to the face.
Oh yeah, it's going to be very intense. This whole thing's going to be very intense.
It sure sounds like it.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be awesome.
You know, the one that really got me was that first one, apartment fire, there's fire preventing your escape. How do you get out? Because as you're going through there, I was like, well, I'd probably just try and climb down as far as I can and fall and hope for the best. So
right.
Clearly I don't have I guess it's better than just leaping off, but it's probably not the ideal way. So I'm excited, I guess just a roundabout way of saying that I'm excited that, some of these applications are going to be useful in more than just worst case scenario. They can be used in just really bad situations that you hear about almost every day.
Exactly. And that's the point. I want this course to be something where you walk away from it and you have a higher level of confidence with real, tangible life skills, real stuff.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great direction to take the course. I mean, I had a ton of fun with it in previous years, but I can't remember the last time that I, used any of the skills from them, because a lot of the skills were, triple worst case scenarios that, just like the complete civil unrest. And so having things that, hopefully I'm never in an apartment fire, but having things that I can almost, and I think other people can relate to on a more personal level, because you've heard about people in fires and apartment fires. I think that it's going to be, pretty exciting, the stuff we'll be learning.
We're going to have a block of breaking into cars, for example. How do you break into a car? All that kind of stuff.
That should be an interesting one.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So we've got CS gas, we've got, apartment fires, we've got breaking into cars, we've got surveillance, counter surveillance. Is there anything else that you want to kind of spill on the upcoming Constellation events?
We have, the big do's and don'ts. We have what will FEMA do, what will DHS do, what will the police do, what will fire department do, how to make a disaster kit, products you want to purchase or buy. We have, we have the gas training, we have restraint defeat, we have surveillance, counter surveillance, we have, the self-egress, ropes hoisting, we have the vehicle lockout. There's a final exercise, like a test. And not everybody can earn their patch just by showing up. We're going to have check sheets, and you have to get everything on your check sheet marked off. So if you can't handle something, if you don't do the CS gas training, if you don't come back with results on the surveillance, if you don't rappel out of the window, out of the fire, then that's it. Then you can try again once you build up the courage.
That's interesting. And is this the first time that GORUCK's done something like that? I mean, outside of selection and those crazier events where, there's a check sheet and there's things that you have to complete to earn a patch, and people won't earn patches just for showing up and getting to the end?
Well, our firearms breacher class has a course of fire at the end that you have to pass with a score of 70% to get your patch. And there's a new event in 2020 that's called GORUCK Shooter, where you also have to pass a ruck time and a shooting qualification to get your patch. So we're starting more and more and more of these quals.
And I'm excited to talk about GORUCK Shooter sometime because
Yeah,
I think a couple of those have snuck their way onto the website, and the descriptions are very interesting.
yeah, I think so.
So back to Constellation. I know the first year it came out, GORUCK was really excited about it. The community was really excited about it. What's the feeling at GORUCK? How's everyone feeling about this new course that you've created?
These are really good questions because they're not questions people would typically ask. I would say that the overall feeling at GORUCK HQ is a lot of excitement and also a lot of curiosity. And it definitely has to be an event that makes sense for the participants and for the company in every way moving forward. As you know, there have been a lot of changes to the website as far as the way events are displayed and the way that you find them. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out over the next 4 betas and then going into 2020.
I'm really interested to see how that plays out as well. I know Jason's been talking for a while now about kind of splitting the events off because it's kind of hard when people search for GORUCK. They get GORUCK gear, they get GORUCK events, and I think that he mentioned that there was some confusion. So I'm really excited to see how this all plays out, how GORUCK's going to be marketing Constellation, and I know I've had a great time at all the events so far. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It'll be very interesting to see the way forward with this.
You had mentioned that when there's going to be 20 people sign up for an event, that's probably not going to be enough to make GORUCK Constellation work. In the past, GORUCK has, reached out to participants and on the event page and said, hey, we need more signups. Are you guys going to get more, can you invite your friends? And then some other times, GORUCK's just kind of canceled the event. So I was curious if GORUCK's going to be giving people the opportunity, since there's only going to be, 10 Constellation events this year, to really, bring friends along and make sure that they don't get canceled due to any attendance issues.
So to answer your question, I think that in 2020, there's going to be a very different strategy from the company than the one we've seen in the past. And so I'm very aware of what you're talking about in times past, where events were, there was a threat the event would be canceled if, for example, they didn't drum up any business, or if the cadre didn't promote the event, or they couldn't get someone to, get those last few people to come. But the strategy for 2020 is going to be different. The strategy is that there are less events overall, right? And not that many constellations. There are limited slots. And because there are less events and because there are limited slots, then the strategy is that people will fill up those events. Those events will fill up, and there's not going to be any cancellations, because unlike 2019, where you have close to 1,000 events, you're going to have about half of that.
It makes a lot of sense.
It's a different strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I know especially for our area, Seattle's a bigger city, and some of the other larger cities where if something comes up and people cancel on a GORUCK event, GORUCK's going to be back the following month, and they'll be back the month after that, and possibly the month after that. So I think people, when there's just so many events, have an easier time saying, I'll push this one because there's going to be another one coming. But with the lower event numbers in 2020, with only 10 Constellation events, if you miss the one to your city, you're probably going to have to fly or drive a really long time to get to the next one. I can see there being less people pushing events and higher percentage of people showing up, just because there's going to be less of them.
Well, the fact is that HQ and the marketing team, they listened to the feedback that they got from the cadre, and they listened to the feedback that they got from the participants, because, as I'm sure you're aware, they had this whole campaign where they actually put it out to ruck clubs, and they asked the ruck clubs to come up with their own event schedules to some degree. You familiar with that?
Yes. Yes. And I thought that was awesome.
Exactly. So that is a completely 180-degree change from the way that it's been done in years past, where they said, like you said, there's one here every month. So one event might only have 7 people show up and another one has 50 people show up. Well, that's not really sustainable, and it doesn't really make much sense if you scale that right over thousands of events. What makes much more sense is tailoring it to the community, which is what they did now. And so I think what we're going to see in 2020, I'd be willing to bet, we're going to see much greater turnout in the events, which will mean more cadre, which will mean better planning, more in depth, and just an overall better quality of product.
I can't wait to see what 2020 brings, because I think GORUCK's already putting out a great quality product. So if you're saying that we might see an even better quality, I mean, I'm sitting here excited just thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well.
So you mentioned the cadre and planning events. One of the things that I love so much about GORUCK events is how much involvement the cadre have in them. I know a lot of people share the same feelings I do, where if they see a certain cadres coming to town that they've either heard about or they've done an event with in the past, that they'll try to do, shuffle some things around and make sure they're either at the event or can shadow for a little bit. And that's just so unique, I think, because I don't know many other event series where it's similar. I mean, looking at half marathons, regular races, I don't know anyone who looks at the race director and says, "Oh man, that's my favorite race director. They're coming to town. I can't wait to go and see them and run their race because they put on the best half marathons." That thought never crosses my mind. But if there's a cadre coming to town who I've done a couple events with, and I've got something going on that weekend, I might, double down on thinking, how can I shift things around this weekend so I can at least go and hang out, maybe do an event, see what's up. So I think it's just kind of a part of what makes GORUCK, so unique and so special to the community.
I would agree with that. And I would also say that there is no other company, at least that I'm aware of, that can do that. There's no other company like GORUCK.
And if there is, I've never found them. So I would say you're right. So, I mean, with Constellation, we've talked about 2020. We've talked about the changes that are being made. There's going to be 10 events. When should we expect those events to be up on the GORUCK calendar?
That's a very good question. And the answer is that today, I've been working on getting the firearms events, not all of them, but a lot of them published, especially the GORUCK shooter events, the self-responders, the precision rifle class, the shotgun breacher class. There's a bunch of them that I've been putting out. Now they were supposed to get launched. They were supposed to be put out on Monday was a launch day, but it got pushed back a little bit. And I think they're going to be launching them on Thursday. And so Thursday, you'll see all the legacy events, heavy, tough, light, firearms events. What you're not going to see, though, is you're not going to see the Constellation event yet, because the Constellation events, I'm not going to be able to publish those until I do at least 2 of these beta tests, because I want to make sure that the web content that we're putting out is accurate web content. And I also want to make sure that the price is an accurate price. So if we were to publish them now and then change it, that wouldn't be fair to people.
I like that thought process. And I've seen, even in the past 45 minutes since we started talking, I think, 20-something GORUCK events have all been added to the calendar. I think all firearms related. So they're still going up right now.
Yep, they're popping up. They're popping up. And hopefully other people besides you are noticing.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And based on what you've said about the GORUCK Firearms Day program, I'm guessing there are other people noticing too, because it sounds like that's been a pretty big endeavor for GORUCK.
Absolutely it is. That's right.
So before we close out on Constellation, is there anything that we might have missed? I mean, this is kind of one of those things where I know some of the questions to ask because I've done the last 3 years of events, but with all the changes, there might be questions that I should have asked but didn't ask. So is there anything I might have missed that we've been talking about?
Nothing that comes to mind, nothing that I can think about. The bottom line is that GORUCK is in a good way. The events are in a good way, and we're constantly coming out with new things, new locations, updates, constantly improving, which is our objective.
That's exciting to hear.
Yeah.
I was getting a little nervous because the 2020 event calendar hadn't been posted yet, but seeing all those events coming through today, hearing that Legacy's dropping on Thursday, all that's getting me pretty excited for what next year has in store.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. New locations, new event curriculums. I mean, anybody who is interested in sustainability, survivability, anybody that's interested in anything that has to do with preservation of self and those that you care about should be very interested in taking Constellation. And it's a phenomenal, phenomenal course.
And I'm really excited about it. Hopefully it comes back to Seattle because I'd love to do it 4 years in a row. Otherwise, I might be looking at maybe traveling because it sounds like it's going to be, quite the experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Man, thank you so much again for talking about Constellation with me. I'm really excited that we were able to connect today because this week in particular seems like it's really big for GORUCK with all the 2020 events, with all of these, these updates, GORUCK Shooter. There's a lot going on this week. So I really appreciate you taking the time, Garrett, to talk with me. I'm sure that you're incredibly busy.
Thanks for having me on, and hopefully this will help get the word out.
Thank you so much for listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast. This has been episode number 113. If you want links to anything we talked about during this episode, you can head on over to alldayruckoff.com/113. That's the numbers 113. Garrett, thank you so much again for taking the time to be on here. We're going to have to talk again soon because there's a number of new events that GORUCK's releasing, and I would love to get the details on those. I think Constellation is going to be really interesting this year. I think the idea that you have to complete certain things to earn the patch is going to be a big change from the way that GORUCK's run a lot of their events. And I'm excited to see how that all plays out. If you want to support the All Day Ruckoff podcast, you can always leave a review on either iTunes or on our Facebook page. Those are both free ways to support. They're truly appreciated. You can also buy stuff in the All Day Ruckoff online store, alldayruckoff.com/store. Or if you buy things from GORUCK, you can use one of our affiliate links, acrt.us/GORUCK or alldayruckoff.com/GORUCK. And there's a chance that if you do that, GORUCK will help support us as well. Finally, there's Patreon, patreon.com/alldayruckoff. Huge shout out to everyone who supports that way, and huge shout out to you for downloading and listening to this episode. It's truly appreciated, and I can't wait to talk to you next Thursday when we'll have Lich on talking about the Mac V1 boots and how he got involved with GORUCK. Hope you have a great rest of the week, a great weekend, and as always, don't forget, attitude is everything. Keep yours positive, and drink hard, rock harder.